Okay, so welcome back, everybody, and thank you for being with us for this second day of the International Winter School. Let me remind you that this winter school is organized by Università Ulm with the support of the Food and Agriculture Organization, FAO. Before I leave you to our guests, let me briefly remind you that we will have a short presentation of our university this morning at the end of this first section. So if you want to stay with us, you will be more than welcome, of course. So I immediately leave the floor to Professor Vincenzo Russo, who will present our guest speaker, Gabriele Zanatta. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Paola, and welcome to everybody. My name is Vincenzo Russo. I'm professor of consumer behavior and neuromarketing at the University, and I'm director of one of the main master in the field of food, master in food and wine communication, and another master in food design. Our university is very interested to analyze the effect of food in economic area, in marketing area, and so on. We spend a lot of time and money to improve the research in this field. We think that this field is very important for our country, but I think the consumer behavior and food consumption is very important in absolute, because there are a lot of meaning, symbolic meaning in the food consumption. So for us, it's very important to spend time, money, and effort to improve the knowledge in this field. So today we will talk about the influence of food and chef on culture and society. And we have the opportunity to have one of the main professor of our master in this field, Professor Gabriele Zanatta. Gabriele Zanatta is a journalist, is an expert in enogastronomy, and deputy editor in one of the main magazine, main guide in Italy about the restaurant, and one of the main organizations in Tagorose, expert in this field. So for us, it's a pleasure to have Gabriele Zanatta today, and we will see tomorrow morning in order to discuss a new approach to analyze the food and the wine. We use a neuroscientific approach to study the reaction of the people to the food and wine, and how it's possible to use the new knowledge about our brain, about our reaction to the food, in order to have a more persuasive message in this field. Tomorrow we will talk about neuromarketing and neurogastronomy. So now I want to leave the stage to Gabriele, and thank you for your participation today. See you tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Professor Vincenzo. Hello, everybody. I will try to share my slide first. Be patient for some seconds. Okay, so like this. Okay. Okay, so stop screen, share screen. All right. Okay. I hope you can see my first slide. Can you confirm, Paola or Jacopo, I think? Okay. Can you confirm you can see my slide? Sorry for this, because I can't see if I can. Hello, Paola, Jacopo. Can everybody see?
Yeah, you can go.
Okay, perfect. Okay, hello everybody. First of all, let me thank Professor Vincenzo Russo Ulm University and FAO for this great opportunity and for your kind words, Professor. I have this chance to focus on an important subject, which is the subject that you read here, the influence of food on culture and society. Actually, we added to this title a word, chefs, because you'll find soon why, the reason why we're talking about persons, because there are always people behind food. And I will try to introduce myself briefly to go beyond what Professor Vincenzo just said before. My name is Gabriele Zanatta. I am a freelance journalist mainly, a food writer and lecturer specialized in history of gastronomy and contemporary food trends. I have been teaching for years at the Yule Master in Food and Wine Communication, run by Professor Russo, he just said that before, and teaching for years in some other institutes and university. But I spend most of my time working for something that is called Identità Golose. I'm sure just few of you know what Identità Golose is. Identità Golose is an international chef and pastry chef congress taking place every year in Milano, the city where I live, since 2005. So on next June, we will have the 16th or 17th edition. Now, it's hard for me to calculate well. Anyway, I will start in a while to talk about Identità Golose and congresses in general. But the thesis I will try to demonstrate today is that we are living in an age when the attention dedicated to food and its main worldwide players, that is, chefs and producers, have never been so high in history, in 2,000 years of history of Western culture. And so what I mean with this 90 minutes lecture is that we can't miss this great opportunity and it also calls great responsibilities, which I'll try to sum up. Let us just start our long historical path, because we have to talk about history, where we come from, to understand who we are today, by saying that food doesn't only affect our culture and society, but even the biological structure of the human being himself. That is the way we are definitely today. This thesis had already been stated by Richard Wrangham. I don't know if any of you know this fantastic anthropologist. He's teaching at Harvard University in the United States, and he proved clearly that the discovery of fire and therefore the act of cooking, which is the next action, changed the structure of the human being itself. We started cooking food on fire, placing meat on a grill around 2 million years ago. And this is what made us pass from the status of Homo habilis to Homo erectus. And it changed cooking, fire, changed the structure of our brain. So it's amazingly important to understand the influence of food on our culture. And this is what I will try to say. I will try to demonstrate in the next few minutes. Concerning this, I'm sure you might have heard the famous French anthropologist, ethnologist, Claude Lévi-Strauss. Cooking, he said, is what made us pass from a natural state to a cultural state. Cooking is an act creating communities and defining social structures. Strangely enough, we could come up with this very important thesis only in the past few years, and this is crazy. Years when we have matured an historical awareness of what happened in the centuries before us. Sorry. I think why were we so late to understand the real phenomenon of food as a founding thing of the way we are? I think this is because everything that has to do with food and the way we eat, of course, and all the techniques connected to cooking and grilling and boiling are victims of a long time taboo, a pluriennial ban that prevents us to talk about this subject, which is absurd if you think about it, because eating and cooking is what we all do like 3 or 5 times a day. And it is crazy that we just realize after 2000 years that it has to do with the way we are. Food is important. Cooking tells about who we are, tells about the civilization we live in. Sorry. A taboo we realize today is absurd, as a nonsense. Okay, this slide is taken from Identità Golose Congress I was mentioning before, but let's go back to congresses again. In the past 20 years, we clearly understood that food has actors behind, has people with flesh and bones. It's not just something abstract that we eat every day. There's always someone behind what we eat, okay? Behind food, there are people with flesh and bones. Precisely, there are chefs who are, in fact, the final spokesperson of a movement including farmers, cheesemongers, winemakers, rice growers, fishermen, butchers, etc. You can add many more than I'm doing here now. These are all virtuous producers, silently working in the fields or in the seas or in the countryside, trying every day on their little spot in silence to make our world a better place through what we eat. Okay. And they constantly ask themselves how food is changing our inner self. And Identità Golose started 16 years ago, as I said before. And on the last edition, before the pandemic started, we had almost 20,000 people listening to more than 100 lectures of chefs, producers, scientists, sharing their ideas on how to improve our world through food. I hope it was clear. But now let's ask ourselves, Identità Golose is a congress, but what is a congress? You might have heard about the Congress of Vienna. No, it's a nightmare. When we were learning at high school, no, we were asked about the Congress of Vienna. Actually, a congress is originally a moment when experts on the same field gather under the same roof to improve on a certain subject. Okay, this picture portrays the father of all the congresses. It's the Congress of Vienna. As you all know, at the beginning of the 19th century, all the statesmen from all over the world gather to give a structure to Europe, to what we know as Europe, which was ruined after the Napoleon Wars. This is just to say that the World Congress has originally a political meaning, and it's still witnessed by the fact that the Congress is the name of the Camera dei Deputati, we call it in Italy, the House of Chambers, no, in the United States. That is Capitol Hill, notorious for the bad recent events with the men dressed in a weird way entering half naked a few weeks ago. But after this political congress, Western cultures developed congress with different subjects: medicine, arts and crafts, law science, heart surgery, bank consultancy, design, fashion designs, everything, all right? We had Congress with different subjects. But let's ask ourselves now, how long do we have to wait in order to attend to the first food congress in history? That is a place where people gather to improve the food and the way we eat. When was the first congress held in history? very late, as the very first edition of a food congress was taken on the year 1999, 1 year before the millennium we are currently living in, only 22 years ago, so late compared to the other subjects of the other congress. And it was the time of the first congress, the first food congress in history was called Lo Mejor de la Gastronomía, the best of gastronomy. And it was based in San Sebastian, in the Basque countries, the north of Spain, close to the border with France. That was the first moment when chefs, producers, and scientists connected to food could gather in one place, which was named the Cursal, in front of a wonderful beach in San Sebastian. I'm sure many of you knows where is San Sebastian. It's a place with surfers from all over Europe because they have big waves. And they were meeting in order to make the food scene and the restaurant industry advance, improve, build a proper and wise path. The first moment when someone stressed for the first time in 1,000 years the increasing role of food as a mean, as an important mean capable of a conscious impact on our culture and society. But why did it take so long to create this food awareness, the first food congress in history? Why food started being considered as an important subject so late in history? Because, as we just mentioned before at the beginning of this speech, food and all the disciplines connected to it are a victim of a pluriannual ban, of a cultural taboo ruling and resisting for 1,000 years, and now, luckily, almost gone. And we are talking about, in the next few minutes, about this ban and the way we overcome it in the past 20 years. What do I mean with ban or taboo? I guess many of you know the portraits that I'm showing you on this slide. It is the Scuola di Atene, the School of Athens, and it was portrayed by Raffaello, one of the most important painters we in Italy, from Renaissance, we in Italy are more proud of. I guess you know probably of the two guys at the center of the picture, you know the two guys standing in the middle. The one on the left is Aristotle. The one on the right was Plato. The guy on the left was Plato. The guy on the right, the younger one, was Aristotle. As we all know well, Aristotle, together with Plato, had a decisive role in the definition of our Western culture. That is, the way we think, the forma mentis, as Latins used to say, shaping us. That is the way we filter reality. That is the way we actually are today. Of course, there is no time now to sum up all the things Aristotle said, but I want to just mention the categorization of science Aristotle established in one of his main opera, which was called Metaphysics. What is important now to say is that, according to Aristotle, a philosopher and later a scientist has to spend his time studying the theoretical branches of knowledge. And these theoretical branches are physics, mathematics, metaphysics. And on a second level, a philosopher must focus his time studying the so-called practical science, like ethics, which is a discipline that studies the way we behave, or the way we should behave, the good and bad, to tell it easily, or the way we should behave in order to get wise, to become wise. Ethics, economy, or politics. Okay, that's right. But what about what we eat? What about food? What did Aristotle say about the things we do 3 or 5 times a day? The way we nurture ourselves is not an important issue, according to Aristotle. he was one of the greatest innovators of Western culture, and he excluded food as a relevant subject. What we eat was considered by Aristotle as not relevant at all, because it doesn't have to do with the rational part of our soul, but it has to do with the sensitive part of our soul. But the sensitive part of our soul is something we share in common with all the other animals of our planet. He didn't say planet because he didn't know he had other things thinking about sun and earth. Anyway, what's important for us to say is that eating is something that has to do with our corporal instincts, with our bodily functions. Therefore, something very low in the hierarchies of all the objects that need to be studied by a philosopher. Food is that smelly thing that we eat and then we digest, creating something smell. Something that smells. There's nothing. A philosopher must not waste his time focusing on this non-relevant subject. Okay. Moreover, when food exceeds, it can distract. He says, this is what Aristotle says. It can distract a man and a philosopher from his main path. It can drive him away of his goal. That is the search of human virtues. Right? According to Aristotle, food is not at all considered as a mean to reach a virtue. Therefore, a philosopher must not waste his time exploring this subject, which is the focus of our lecture, and everything else that has to do with what we eat and how we cook. We don't care, Aristotle said. It's nothing that has to do with the way we are, with our essence. And this, as you know, this pluriannual ban, this taboo that lasted 2,000 years, I was mentioning, was established with Aristotle around 2,300 years ago, more or less, I would say, yeah. And it affected the primeval classification of sciences, affecting the destinies of the Western world, the culture we still live in. I'd love to precise one thing, because I know many of you come from Asia as well. We're talking here about Western culture, not Eastern or Far Eastern culture, which is a totally different story to tell. I'd love to talk about this maybe in the next edition of this winter school. Some centuries later then, after the Aristotle ban, let's call it Aristotle ban, this ban was further strengthened by Christian and Catholic culture, as you all know. The Christian and Catholic culture are willy-nilly the spine of the way Westerners are today. Who of you know how gluten or eating are represented in the Bible? How is gluttony, that is the craving for eating, considered in the lines of the Holy Scriptures? Gluten is not in a good company, as you all know. Actually, it is in bad company, together with pride, greed, wrath, envy. Am I forgetting something? And gluttony, of course. What are they? These are what they call the 7 deadly sins. No, they are known as the capital vices. And the capital vices are the opposite of the 7 heavenly virtues, like justice, fortitude, temperance. Something a faithful observant, a Christian believer, must keep himself away from if he wishes to be saved in his afterlife. The 7 deadly sins, I mean, not the virtue. This is how the pluriannual food ban was born and then spread into Western societies. Gastronomy, that is the content of what we eat, the way we eat, and the technique we use to transform food, to cook a piece of meat or fish or a vegetable and serve it on a dish, all this has been for a long time seen as a non-relevant subject, as something you should keep yourself away from. And it was an unwritten rule, ruling for millennia, I would say, for more than centuries, until our present days. In spite of this, history of gastronomy is rich with examples of isolated genius and gastronomers who did not care about this, who didn't care much about this mainstream ban or taboo. And these are the first gastronomers I'm going to talk about. Let me tell you, at the end of this speech, I will leave you a bibliography and videography about all the authors and all the people, the gastronomers we're talking about today, so that you can deepen. And then I will leave you, of course, my contacts if you need, if you're curious about this subject and you want to know more by reading books. So the first gastronomer of our times is the man you see in this slide. His name was Apicius. Have you ever heard about Apicius? About Marcus Gavius Apicius? Apicius was a cook who lived more or less in the same years of Jesus Christ, a little more than 2,000 years ago then. We are not that sure that that there was actually a man called Marcus Gavius Apicius, because his book, a collection of recipes he is famous for, named the Re Coquinaria, as you can see in this slide, it was which can be translated as regarding the art of food, the art of cooking, something like that. This book is a collection of recipes which were put together 4 centuries after this man was supposed to be born. So it was a later collection. After he's put together 4 centuries after he was born. Now, I don't want to bore you about him and his works, because the focus of this speech is mostly on our contemporary time. But I'd love to stress some interesting facts about this man, about Apicius, because he was truly the first groundbreaking figure in history of food, reflecting his ideas on somehow secretly very hidden into society and culture. For example, his recipes would be considered very contemporary for the perfect balance of savory and sweet notes, for the strong use of exotic spices available, which were at that time, back then, available from the most remote colonies of the Roman Empire. You know better than me, the Roman Empire was huge. It extended its borders until what we call today Eastern Russia, in the middle of the Black Africa, the center of Africa. So it was huge, and it could collect ingredients and spices from all over the world. So he had ingredients rich in substance and varieties. But Apicius was a revolutionary for the way he set a table, not just as a dining space, but as a part of a special place, I would say, of a show intended to seduce not just our palates, not just our eyes, but the customers' minds, their emotions, their inner feelings. Apicius first created what today we call experience. You know, everyone today, every restaurateurs today are talking about the importance of experience compared to what we eat. No, experience is important. It's a very important issue for contemporary chefs and restaurant owners. Apicius was definitely the first cook who tried to elevate gastronomy to the dignity of the other sciences, in spite of the ruling taboo, in spite of the ruling ban I was talking to you before. This dish, I know it can sound strange, but the dish I'm showing you is probably the most celebrated fine dining dish of the past 5 years in Italy, I would say. It's called rigatoni cacio e pepe in vescica. Probably you'll understand better the next slide. This is the content of the vescica. What is it? It's a kind of pasta with a pepper and cheese sauce cooked into a pig's bladder The bowl you see here, it's a pig's bladder, something that probably will leave you speechless, because cooking something in a pig's bladder is not what we do every day. It is cooked by Riccardo Camanini. He is one of the most talented fine dining chefs we have today in Italy. Who do I say? Why do I say so? Why do I mention this dish? It's because Chef Camanini, is a man who knows exactly the value of history of gastronomy. He thinks, how can your job move forward if we don't know what and who came behind us? Where did Camanini learn the technique of cooking in a pig's bladder? From Apicius, okay? From Apicius' books of recipe, De Re Coquinaria. And the reason why I'm showing you this is to stress that the most talented chefs of our age finally recognize the role of history, but it took a long time again to get this achievement, to get this important awareness. There's a final curiosity about Apicius I'm going to mention now, because it's funny, because Apicius, living 2,000 years ago, he was living in the same age of other important Latin authors like Seneca or Plinius the Elder. I don't know if you ever heard about them. They were more institutional authors, of the early Latin age, both part of what we call today the mainstream culture of that age. Do you know what Seneca's and Plinius the Elder's, which was Seneca's and Plinius the Elder's opinion about Apicius? He was considered as a misleader of youth. He was just an innocent and a genius, a chef. But Seneca and Plinius the Elder, like victim of the ban of their age, of the Aristotle ban that we said before, they used to say, how dare this man to season his recipes with the liver of a fish to make his dishes tasty? Stay away of him. Just stay away, this youth corrupter. Apicius is a youth corrupter. He's a dangerous person, very far away from being a social model, from the model chefs have become today. This is just to tell you how hard it was for a cook or for a chef to handle this ban. In fact, probably Apicius committed suicide at the end of his life because he couldn't afford a rich table, and he was seen in a bad way by all the other Latin authors. But this is just a legend. There's no evidence. There's no real evidence about this. But let's proceed on our very quick historical path, because time is running. Yes, it's 10:35. There is no time to summarize 1,000 years in the history of gastronomy. Let us just say that, generally speaking, in the medieval age, the conscious influence of food and cooks on culture and society was more than marginal, I would say. It was very weak. When we refer to the Middle Ages as the age of the Dark Ages, as we call it, this negative meaning includes also the non-development of gastronomy for the way we see it now today. If we don't talk about just a few exceptions, gastronomy was negligible until, I would say, the 2 centuries of Renaissance, an historical movement that recorded a rebirth. You all know, no? Renaissance means rebirth, to be born again after the Dark Ages. Not just in the fields of arts and scientists, as we studied at high school or university, but also on food and cuisine. At least food and the way we eat are no more issues to be censored or deleted from our conscience, but they are something finally capable of a minimum dignity. And it's an important step forward compared to what was happening before this. Why did this happen? Where did this change take place? In precise places like courts of noblemen, dukes, marquises, aristocrats, cardinals, even popes and kings. That is, in the places that could afford expensive ingredients. In the Renaissance, the greatest cooks were confined into the four walls of emperors, cardinal. They could cook well and study the food matter because they could afford it, you know. So it's slowly starting being something that affects a certain knowledge that builds culture, something which we can call today as cultures. Places that could afford expensive ingredients and talented cook and gastronomies who were finally working to give food the spotlight and the space food actually deserved. I guess you all know this man I'm showing you in these slides. His name is Fernand Point. He is a great chef from Catalonia in the south of Spain. I can say Catalonia and Spain in the same sentence because somebody might get offended. But Fernand Point is certainly the most influential chef, cook, and cuisine personality of the past 30 years. 10 years ago, I was lucky enough to interview him at the Identità Golose Congress. And like all when Fernand Point is interviewed by someone else, like all the most intelligent personalities in the world, all of a sudden, me, the interviewer, I was interviewed myself by Ferran. All of a sudden, he asked me, Gabriele, in your opinion, who is the most relevant, the most important, the greatest chef of all time? That was very hard to answer because I answer with a couple of names from last century, like Gualtiero Marchesi, he's the forefather of new Italian cuisine, or Paul Bocuse, the French Paul Bocuse. No, we will talk about Bocuse a little later. And Fernand Point said, wrong, this is wrong. The best chef of all ages is Bartolomeo Scappi. I was very surprised, but I'm asking you, too bad I can't talk to you right now, but maybe we can do this at the end of our lecture. But have you ever heard about this man? Have you ever heard about Bartolomeo Scappi? How come that none of us, myself included, at the time I was interviewed by Fernand Point, has ever heard about this incredible cook who lived in the 16th century? Again, it's because chefs have always been considered by the mainstream as non-relevant figures, personality that has nothing special to say, unlike poets, sculptors, or painters of Renaissance. Why haven't we been considering chefs and great gastronomers on the same level? The fact that we don't know Scappi at all is another important evidence of this taboo, of this ban that affected gastronomy for ages. But if we want to consider food as an influential instrument, changing the habits of our society and culture, we can't ignore points of references like Bartolomeo Scappi. That is, the producers, but also the innovative game changers who transform and serve the food they are delivered by producers. Okay? Bartolomeo Scappi is, of course, a game changer. We must know, all the chefs today must know what were the achievements of Bartolomeo Scappi. He was called the Michelangelo of Italian cuisine by Ben Johnson. Ben Johnson, not the Canadian athlete who used to dope himself at the Olympics like 30 years ago, but the British writer of the same age, living in the same age in the 17th century. He was saying that Bartolomeo Scappi is the Michelangelo of Italian cuisine. And he wrote the opera, the so-called opera, which is a book that I strongly recommend to all of you. It's a collection of more than 1,000 recipes, but it gathers much more than this. It's not just a simple cookbook. It details with extreme precision the way a table should be organized, all the particular skills of chefs committed in each and every cuisine brigades, with long details even on the salary of each chef. And if we focus on Bartolomeo Scappi purely gastronomic innovative achievements, we must mention the very rich techniques he applied to fish and fishes, which sounds very normal for us today. But before Scappi, fish has always been seen as something too strange or weird to be cooked or served systematically. And that taboo lasted until Renaissance. So if today we can say that if today we fish and eat fish, we somehow owe a little part of this very important human habit to this man, to Bartolomeo Scappi. And Bartolomeo Scappi also explored widely the universe of vegetables. Before him, zucchini, eggplants, or other kind of vegetables, not the tomatoes, because it was not already introduced into Europe. It was not a common food, Tomato comes from South America. All these vegetables were popular among lower social classes by farmers, not on royal tables. After him, the cuisine of roots and cereals, after Bartolomeo Scappi, started spreading everywhere, at least on the tables of rich people, as I said before. It's not that food was not a democratic, good food was not a democratic thing until 20 years ago, which is very important to say. I will talk about this a little later. The last Scappi's important contribution to our table I want to mention right now is related to food taboos. He didn't have any. Okay, in the recipes of his opera, we find him cooking even dormice. You know dormice, the animal, like a little animal resembling a rat, walking on the trees. He was cooking bears, even swans. I know you can be, if you're vegan or vegetarian, it doesn't matter, but it may sound horrifying, but I mean, that shows that Bartolomeo Scappi wanted to prove that he had no prejudices when cooking. That's very important to say. And think about today how religious taboos affect our diet. The clearest example are the kosher diet, as you all know, or the pig's meat ban for the Muslims, or cow meat for the Hindus. We could talk about ages about this very interesting subject. Or cats or dog for us as Westerners, like us, or rabbit for the Scandinavians. If you cook a rabbit to a Scandinavian, it's like cooking a fish or a dog to a Westerner. They look you as a criminal, not as a chef. Anyway, as we have to move fast forward to the contemporary age and to the contributions of food and chefs to culture and society, there is not much time left in our time travel. But if you are interested in books about the cuisines or most relevant gastronomers in the Renaissance age, like Bartolomeo Scappi, but there's many more, like Martino da Como, Bartolomeo Sacchi, all living in what we call currently Italy, please write me on my email, which I'll give it to you later. And I'll be very glad to send you more informations and biographies. After this very long, sorry about this historical introduction, but it was very important for me to start from the word we come from. I apologize if it was too long. After this premise, let's turn quickly our pages till we reach the 20th centuries, closer to our times. The centuries we left 21 years ago, was the century when food and all the systems related to it put their head out of this ghetto, the ghetto where it has been confined for 2,000 years. And how did this happen? The answer, of course, is very complex and must imply or consider many aspects. Let us just say that this man in the picture has its responsibilities. He is German entrepreneur Karl Benz. He is the inventor of the modern car as we know it today, not the Tesla, the first, really, the first modern car. And it happened in 1886, more than 100 years ago, 130 years ago around. This is how mass tourism was born, okay? And 1900 is an important year for the industry of food and restaurants, because at the beginning of the 20th century, there are less than 3,000 cars traveling here and there in France. Highways are developing very quickly. You know, the net of the highways is developing very quickly. And so are restaurants, because restaurants started spreading as places where you could have a break or have a meal on the way to our destination. No, this is how restaurants spread it. Restaurants are more and more connected one another at this time. And 1900 is the year when the first edition of the Michelin Guide France was published. Okay, this is very important in the culture of in our present culture of nowadays. You probably know well the stories of these two men, André and Edouard Michelin. They were two brothers, managers, who decided that the new generation of car drivers should have a book inside their car. They equipped these like pioneers of driving with this red guide. It was advising them at the beginning on where to repair a flat tire, where to refuel your modern car. And after 10 years at the beginning of 20th century, so many restaurants were born along the way, so much that André and Edouard Michelin decided to rank restaurants and to classify them, as you all know, with these three, 1, 2, 3 Michelin stars. You know, 1 Michelin stars means high quality cooking worth a stop. 2 stars is excellent cooking worth a detour, and 3 stars is exceptional cuisine worth a special journey. You see here, Michelin is not talking about how a dish should be made. They just talk about driving through these driving metaphors, worth a detour, worth a stop, worth a journey. Because Michelin Guide was originally born as an instrument for drivers, not for gourmet, okay? And it still witnessed this kind of origins. And the history of Michelin, you can imagine, could take us hours. You know, the guys from the food and wine communication masters that you'll know very well how boring I can be with the history of Michelin. What is important now for us to stress is that with tourism at the beginning of 20th century, a generation of high restaurateurs, restaurant keepers is finally born, okay? Haute cuisine is born, and these chefs are these pioneer chefs of haute cuisine, high cuisine, are competing one another, but slowly sharing their ideas to offer customers the best meal possible. Okay, in the middle of the journey of this new and rich generation of new drivers. Most importantly, a haute cuisine model is born. The haute cuisine model is born, and it still has so many consequences on the way we conceive a table in a restaurant today. Haute cuisine is actually a paradigm, a precise model that will slowly affect our everyday eating and cooking. Also our home eating, no? You know, the parallel we always make in this case is when we say that just like haute couture in fashion design affects pret-à-porter, haute cuisine affected everyday tables, also the domestic way we set the table. This is very important to say. The authors of this little revolution in the bad at its beginning stage were people who cooks. And the man you see here is Fernand Point. He's a legendary chef of probably the most influential chef in the 20th century, the first half of the 20th century. He had a restaurant, Pyramid, in Vienna, which is not in Austria, but in the south of France. And he was one of the first mythical places of our age. I'm not sure you know this very nice lady, Eugenie Brazier. Have you ever heard about her? She was also known as Le Mère Brazier, no? Mother Brazier. Because she was a lady capable, just think about it, capable of having 2 restaurants with 3 Michelin stars at the same time. In year 1933, imagine, it would be an amazing achievement today. Imagine almost 100 years ago. The 2 restaurants were based in Lyon, in the south of France. She was part of a movement that starts having something very important to say, to add to our culture and society. A movement, for instance, that will state that ingredients like foie gras, lobsters, chicken de Bresse, poulet de Bresse, or caviar, they are jewels, no? They are worth a big expense in terms of money. No, champagne. Let's not talk about champagne. A model of so what I'm meaning now is that a model of cuisine based off sauce, especially, in France they call them jus, was established, and there was a real revolution affected the cuisine culture all over Europe. There would be lots to tell about this. There's a wonderful book called The Perfectionist, written by Rudolf Chelminsky. It's one of the titles I will give you at the end of the lectures, together with a list of other books. This is the beef bourguignon of Eugenie Brazier. No, what's important now to say is that through French Michelin-starred restaurants, food and the action of eating are slowly becoming something relevant, something whose features, whose properties are worth to be listened to, because they are precise expressions mirroring the culture of a certain civilization, like the French, the European. That's the first time it happens in history. And it's weird that only in the 20th century, we were slowly realizing that what and how we eat, gestures we normally do in a day 3. I'm a bit oversized. If you could see me, I do it much more than 3 or 5 times a day. Unfortunately, I need to slow down a little. But what we eat and how we eat are issues telling us a lot about us, mirroring important aspects of what we are. There is one limit, though. At this early stage of haute cuisine, let's say in the first half of this 20th century, chefs don't share much their knowledge. At that time, it was hard to communicate. No, they didn't have mobile, they didn't have emails. No, it was hard to communicate one another. But also, chefs were jealous of their dishes. They were jealous of what they came to know, of their techniques. They tended not to share them because, these were cooked with secrets that should have been kept. And actually, they were not asked much by media to express their opinion about the 4 walls of their kitchens. No, there was no attention from the media like we see today. What they had to do was cooking, and that was enough. They were not, allowed to communicate, I would say, publicly. I mean, for all this reason, their impact on the food scene and society was not relevant as it is today. But still, something was growing, something was moving. They were not yet considered as maître à penser, as master, like cooks or chefs are considered today. But, something was slowly moving. on the direction we just came today. But when did chefs climb the rock till they became public figures, maître pensée, that is expert with something important to say? With this man, Paul Bocuse. I'm sure you know him well. He was called the kings of chef, the king of chefs, and the chef of kings. Okay, he kept 3 Michelin stars for 16 years at Auberge de Pont de Collonges in the south of France, near Lyon as well, just like Eugenie Brazier. His restaurants kept the 3 Michelin stars for 60 years. There's a lot to tell about Paul Bocuse. Here, we just have the time to focus on just one aspect: the birth of Nouvelle Cuisine in 1973. It's important historically, Nouvelle Cuisine, because it is a movement that gathered generations of young French, which later had a great impact on how we conceive restaurants and the way we eat. I'm sorry, we don't have time now to read this 10 Commandment manifesto written by Paul Bocuse and all the other chefs of the Nouvelle Cuisine generation at the beginning of the 70s. But these slides are here to remain. But what's important to say now is not reading every commandment line by line, but it's important that with Nouvelle Cuisine and Paul Bocuse, for the first time in history, someone was suggesting the rules of how cuisine of a restaurant should be. And that had a huge impact on the way we cook, even today. There were consequences with this, after this line, which are very clear even on the way we conceive a restaurant today. The second important thing from an historical point of view is that with Paul Bocuse, for the first time in history, a chef grabs a microphone and he will never put it down. Finally, I would say. And this is how we come back to food congresses again. Since 1999, that is little more than 20 years ago, when the first food and chef congresses was released in San Sebastian, several countries and their governments finally realized that the way a civilization eats has lots to say about the identity of the civilization itself. After Lo Mejor de la Gastronomía, the first important food congress in history, we had many more food congresses, just like Madrid Fusion in Madrid, always Spain, Identità Golose, Omnivore in Paris. Then again, there's Tokyo Taste in Japan, Star Chefs in New York, the Flemish Primitives in Belgium. It's inspired by the famous Belgian movement of painters. And this is my favorite. This picture is taken from MAD in Copenhagen, organized by René Redzepi every year at the end of August. And it's probably the most influential chef, René Redzepi, of the past 10 years for the issues he can raise on our conscience. So many occasions for chefs. These congress are fantastic because they create so many occasions for chefs and producers to meet, to learn from each other, to share ideas, techniques, products, to focus not just on cuisine or how to get the perfect ingredient or how to cook it simply, but also discussing on how a dining room should be structured, on the best way to welcome people in a restaurant, on the role and hierarchies of waiters and sommelier, on how neurosciences can improve a customer's experience, as Professor Russo will talk about, knows very well, he will talk about on his lecture tomorrow, I think. The chefs meeting one another were like meeting and sharing ideas on how to create an experience capable of seducing not just palates or eyes, but all the five senses, a way of proceeding through trial and errors, advancements, studying and writing books that have never been written before. You know, this is why I'm saying that this age is fantastic, because we are having things that we never had before. All in all, treating gastronomy with the dignity of a science, just like the other, a science capable of dialoguing with medicine, arts, design, fashion design. You know, finally, gastronomy has a dignity. You know, and the result we can see in the past 20 years is that the restaurant industry innovated itself, and it has more relevant things, much more than it did in the previous 200 years. We said so many fantastic things in this past 20 years, way much more than what we said for 200 years. I would say 2000 years, you know. And what's more exciting is that it's a very democratic opportunity at its early stage, associating both countries with a long food tradition, like Italy or France or Japan or China, with countries which until 20 years ago were not famous at all for their food and restaurant industry traditions. You know, we can witness in the past 20 years the boom of countries like Denmark, Australia, Peru, of countries that we never mentioned back then for their food and restaurant importance. In all this chef cuisines and food phenomenon, we have to be aware of a big risk. That is because we passed from a pluriennial taboo or ban, as I said 1,000 times, to a universal trend. You know, no one has ever paid attention to food, and all of a sudden everyone is doing it, even people who has never cared about. You know, that's really something, a revolution. No, we pass from nothing to everything, from silence to an endless and overwhelming talk, to a moment when chefs are everywhere. You know, when chefs and producers today are even asked questions on subjects far beyond what they know. You know, chefs are always asked about politics, society, and subjects that has not properly are not properly bound to what they really know, to what they're expert of. And in the past 20 or 30 years, we say something similar with fashion designers or industrial designers. You know, it's a sort of trend that all of a sudden explodes. You know, but you know, the duty of us as communicators, people working in the restaurant industry, is trying to separate contents that matter from, you know, trend thing like Master Chef that doesn't have, that is like a show. It's an entertainment. It doesn't have much to do with the substance of what we eat and how we do it. We, as communicators of food and cuisine, we have one mission: to separate the substance from trends. No? Stardom from what really matters. No? And this is not always easy when you think that this man, Massimo Botturas, his episode on Chef's Table on Netflix scored like in 3 years, 4 years, something, when it was out 4 years ago, something like that. It scored something like 20 million views, 25 million views. Cuisine is a big trend today, but we must not be blinded or dazzled by that. We, as communicators, must focus on the real contribution of food to our society and culture. We must not, like we often see, act like groupies, you know, groupies screaming in front of chefs, ooh, because, you know, this crazy food thing is getting like this. Oh my God, there's Massimo Bottura, you know, like we did with the Bono or singers, 20 or other singers like 20 years ago. We are slowly coming to the end of my speech. We would need at least 1 more hour to resume the most important technical contributions of chef to the world of gastronomy in the past 10 years. But now, as we approach the end of this speech, I'd love to focus on one final issue, which is very important to me, the social responsibility of chefs. That is, their impact on society. What's going on is that these generations of cooks and chefs understood very well that they can impact society we live in far beyond the techniques they use to cook. As famous French chef Alain Chapelle stated once, a chef is much more than the sum of his recipes. After all my boring words, I'd love to show you some examples concerning the contemporary social commitments of a chef. In my opinion, this is the most intelligent and generous way to take advantage of that chef's crazy celebrity. I'm going to show you a 20-minute video, but I'm not sure if I have the time, because what time is it? It's 11:10. Well, I think we can skip it otherwise. But I will send you the link of this wonderful Massimo Bottura speech. It's a video clip, filmed 4 years ago in April 2016. I'm not sure all of you know Massimo Bottura. He's probably the most well-known Italian chef today. His restaurant, Osteria Francescana, is based in Modena, has 3 Michelin stars, and it's been voted for 2 non-consecutive years as the best fine dining restaurants in the world by a committee of more than 1,000 jurors, gourmet, and journalists from all over the world. This video clip is called "Cooking is a Call to Act," and its length is 20 minutes. It was filmed 5 years ago. We don't have time to see it, but please, later I will forward you the link so that you can understand well what is the commitment of today's chef to our everyday life, to our how can they impact on society. And it was the stage of this speech was the Opera House in Sydney, probably the most important monument symbol of Australia. It shows how times are changing, because chefs today took the place of actors or politicians. Besides speaking about the role of chefs into our society, it expresses well how important it is for a chef to be able today to use rhetoric and public speaking. Please have a look at it, and then I'd love to exchange ideas about this. But what is important for me, let me just add one more thing about Bottura, is that he opened, I'm not sure you know, all his Refettorio project. He opened a soup kitchen in Milano in 2015, in the year of Expo. And he has mentioned that in the clip I'm advising you to see. But it was established in the hinterland of Milano, a place where it was a place where every day they were cooking ingredients of food which would be thrown away in the garbage. So every day since 2015, Massimo Bottura is cooking rotten ingredients for poor people, not just in Milano, for the people, for clochard, of people who cannot afford a meal, not just in Milano, but he opened refettorios in Rio de Janeiro, Bologna, Modena, Naples, London, Paris, Merida, I think in the Yucatan Peninsula, in Mexico, and he's planning to open more refettorio in San Francisco with a fantastic message. We can cook food that we normally throw away, feeding 100,000 of people all over the world, and this is a very important message, showing that chefs today can go far beyond the recipes they cook. Because of these social commitments, Massimo Bottura was nominated Goodwill Ambassador from the United Nations Organization, imagine, last August. And it expresses well the sign of the times we live in, when recipes, as Bottura says in this clip, can become a social gestures. Chefs today are not just listen, but they can change through their examples the society and culture we live in. I'm talking about Massimo Bottura, but we should speak about so many examples. And the man you see here is Nico Romito. No, in Italy we are very proud of the social commitment of this guy. He is the chef and owner of Casa Donna Reale restaurant, and it's a restaurant and a boutique hotel founded in a former monastery in the Abruzzo region. Nowadays, it's the only 3 Michelin star restaurants in the south of Italy. His recipes are technically stunning. Probably some of you know him. He's very innovative, and he's struggling to build a project where we Italians have always failed. That is, codify all the recipes of our huge traditions, regional traditions. But we have no time to speak about this now, because time is running. I don't want to go beyond the limits, okay, but I'm in time. I just want to mention now his commendable social commitments, totally different from what we just saw with Massimo Bottura. Sorry for this bad quality picture, but I couldn't find a better picture than this. This is the stage of a lecture Nico Romito had on an Identità Golosa edition 2 or 3 years ago. I can't remember well. What you see here is an innovative hospital food cart. It's a cart taking food to the patient's room of a hospital. Nico Romito has been working for years in trying to improve the quality of hospital food. The line of reasoning behind the intelligenza nutrizionale, this is how this project is called, nurtural, I wouldn't know how to translate that in English, nurtural intelligence, something like that, is how does a sick person have to suffer also with bad foods? Why? Why does a patient has to suffer twice for his disease and for the bad food he's given in a room hospital? Why is that so? I mean, Nico Romito started asking himself this: how can we improve the food of a hospital? He started studying the food cost of a hospital meal. And with the same food cost, that is something like between $1-2 a meal, he experimented for months in order to cook a puree with great potatoes. You know, the puree or the plastic steak we eat in a hospital, you know, it's a curse most of the times. He studied how to improve with the same amount of money a single piece of puree or a spaghetti al pomodoro, tomato spaghetti, a meat well cooked, a dish, how to heat a dish before it is delivered to the patient room. This is what this cart is for. So to serve it at the right temperature, because the temperature at which a meal is served can make the difference. No? And this is a project by Nico Romito aimed to improve collective food services in general. That is, better food at low cost. Not just for hospitals, that's very important to say, not just for hospitals, but for companies, for big companies, for catering, for schools, for large dining halls or collective soup kitchens, you know. He is trying to improve our everyday meal. And this is very important, because a 3 Michelin star chefs decides to go, on the lower level to make us eat, all of us, better than we normally do. Okay, and Nico Romito, this is very important, he just declared he's going to open a university campus near his restaurants in the Abruzzo region in 2022, that is next year. He will focus just on this mission, that is, studying and conceiving higher quality and cheaper food for the highest number possible of people, no matter if they belong to higher or lower classes. That's very important. And this is very democratic, and it shows well the path of gastronomy that is having an impact on the lower classes, on our everyday life. And this is fantastic, in my opinion. After 2,000 years of ignorance of chefs, we didn't care. We never listened to, because, they are just cooks. They must just stay like in their jail of the four walls of their kitchen. Something, and what's going on now is something unimaginable or inconceivable. And I just limited my analysis on Italian chefs, on the two most brilliant, I would say, Italian chefs right now, Massimo Bottura and Nico Romito. But there would be plenty to talk about worldwide chefs. Regarding this, before I leave, that's the final step of my lecture. Thank you for being with me for such a long time. I imagine with this like a virtual distance, it's not as easy to listen to it. But before I leave, I just want to show you one video. That's a very short video. It was filmed by the Basque Culinary Center. It's a school based in San Sebastian, again, Donostia, in the north of Spain. It is a very ambitious school focused on education, research, innovation, development about gastronomic subjects. They are doing a great job, especially connecting all the main food actors of our age from all over the world, like we do at Identità Golose. Chefs, producers, scientists. Every year, for the past 5 years, they assign the so-called Basque Culinary Prize. It's a sort of Nobel Prize of gastronomy aimed to support projects that can make the world a better place through food. Jacopo, now.
From far away, it seems like not much is happening on Earth. Even close up, we would think there isn't much movement. But that's not the case. Where yesterday there was a vast plain, today there is a mountain range. Forests have given way to deserts, and deserts to forests. Some seas have disappeared, while others have expanded. There are volcanoes that awaken after an eternity of rest, and rivers that cannot be stopped by any obstacle. No one is unchanging. Nothing is forever. And everything means everything. Cuisine transforms too. That's exactly what the Basque Culinary World Prize is here to celebrate. The transformation of gastronomy when chefs from around the world understand that they can impact society by connecting to the world beyond the kitchen. A prize that, now in its 5th edition, is establishing itself as a far-reaching commitment to a trend that is continuously growing and evolving. More than 600 nominations, 450 nominees, 42 countries, 40 finalists. A judges panel with the most influential chefs of the moment and international experts chooses a winner based on who best demonstrates how food can be a transformative force in areas such as innovation, creativity, education, social development, the environment, and many others. Our first winner, Maria Fernanda di Circabe, demonstrated how a powerful network of education, entrepreneurship, employment, and social development could be constructed around a hallmark ingredient like criollo cacao. Then, Leonor Espinosa showed how much a chef can contribute to diversifying the use of a country's biodiversity, generating sources of economic growth and social innovation in marginalized communities of great identity value. For his part, Jacques Sonfrillo from Scotland stressed the importance of preserving the ancestral knowledge of Australia's Aboriginal peoples through food, cataloguing hundreds of unknown species with unimaginable potential and opening up new channels of creativity, particularly in the culinary sense. And in 2019, American Anthony Myant taught us with conviction and persistence to stand up using food against one of global society's most important challenges, climate change, shedding light on the restaurant industry's environmental impact and providing tools for cooks to reduce or offset their carbon footprint. 4 winners, 4 stories to help understand what happens when chefs use their knowledge, talent, and ingenuity to transform their surroundings and breathe life into a multiplier phenomenon. In the end, even though from far away it seems like nothing is happening, everything is happening. Everything is changing.
Okay, now I need to share my screen for the final steps of my lecture. Okay. Okay. Sorry, I'm just... Okay, the short video, it shows us how gastronomy today is related to crucial aspects for the future of our society. You know, it has to do with history, as I hope I have proved at the beginning of this lecture, but it has to do also with climate change, as they said in this video. Climate change, environment, biodiversity, social innovation, preservation of identities, memories, civilizations on the way to extinction. As you saw, the example of John Zoffrillo is doing a great job with the Aboriginal cultures of the way they used to eat. And it shows well how food has turned today into something much more than just relevant. After centuries of cultural denials, gastronomy and all the players connected with the food are drawing attentions they never had in 2,000 years of Western history. This means that we have a great opportunity today, an opportunity we shouldn't miss or waste. But most of all, it calls great responsibility we should be totally aware of. Now, I just want to show you the final slide of my lecture. Thank you very much for your attention. It was a pleasure. And I would have loved to dialogue with you much more than I did, which is nothing. But I'm here if you have any questions. I'm not sure if we have some time left, probably 5 minutes. I'll be very glad to listen to your questions, if you have any. Probably I have to go, yeah. Okay, okay, I'm reading in the column next to here. Just let me put this instead of my face, which is a little better if you want to take note of my contacts. Does food influence culture, or does culture influence food? I think that's a good question, but actually there's no consequence between one another. Food is culture. If you ask Massimo Bottura what's the ingredient of the future, he would answer culture. You know, we must know where we come from to understand who we are. That's very easy to say. That's even, you know, too logical, too banal to be said. But, you know, this is truth. You can, food, the way we eat, I think we do 3, 4, 5, 6 times in a day, tells everything about us. It is culture, you know, and this is the greatest achievement of the past 20 years. What do you think about sustainability in the food sector? It's a very important topic, sustainability. It's, of course, it has to do with the destiny of our world. You know, it has to do with the planet we are delivering our sons and daughters. Of course, it's fantastic, but people are not talking about are not talking much about another sustainability, another meaning, which has to do with the economics sustainability of a restaurant, of food, And unfortunately, we are seeing this in this pandemic age, how important it is to build a restaurant as a firm, as a company, with all the calculation written well on how to make a restaurant alive. A restaurant must be sustainable, especially towards the people who work for this restaurant. This is very important. And waiters and cooks have always been considered not as slaves, that would be too much, but people to be treated badly, people working for like 16, 18 hours a day, but sustainability has to do with the a relation of people, treating workers well. It's a very important issues of this past 3-4 years. It's not just about the sustainability of ingredients and of the world, but about the sustainability of people we work with, people to share ideas with. It was really funny how we realized we have almost the same cuisine with Mexico, Lebanon, Greece, Turkey. Food is something magical that connects people who don't even speak each other's language. That's totally true. I mean, is there a more universal language than food? You can sit on the same table with Alaskan, Australian, Aboriginal, like Malian or Indian or Pakistani people, and you'll understand each other in front of a dish much more than you do when trying to speak or when trying to shake hands like we Italians are used to do. Heard that another questions. I heard that insects will be a popular food in the future because they are rich in proteins. Do you think that we will win our prejudice against insects? That's a very good question. Thank you very much, whoever did this. Of course, insects will be much more important in our diets. But it's a sort of trend right now. It's not a trend in countries where insects have always been part of their diet for ages, like China, Mexico, or Central America, Central and South America. They eat grasshoppers. René Redzepi in Denmark did a great experiments with the flavor of ants on food, because when they are caught from the ground, ants, they release this sort of citrus flavor, which is good to enrich the flavors of other ingredients. Anyway, what's important here is not just insects, but we must not fall under any taboos. We had the big taboos for 2,000 years. It's important to taste and to use your techniques on whatever can be eaten. Insects, of course, are part of this big group of what can be eaten. And cooks must be, they must not act with prejudice. They must work trying to ask themselves if ants or insects or grasshoppers can be eaten and add something to our culture and our diets. How do fast food chains influence our culture? That's another fantastic question. It's difficult because I think our time is over, but of course it has a lot. But what we are seeing in the past 20 years is that there's more talking between huge, massive food chains and gastronomers and cooks. And this is the future. This is the future. I mean, there will always be time to share, to make people of different levels talk one another. And this is what's going on. So let's not say fast food chains is hell and all the others are the virtuous people. Let's try to understand and share ideas with anybody. This is the last question. Paula warns me. Food traditions are an important connection with heritage and a means of resisting assimilation and oppression. That's true. How can we use food as a way to connect nations together while embracing diversity? Thank you very much for these very good questions. I hope I answer somehow in this 90 minutes I could speak to you. This is what all the food congress are trying to do every year. It shows we as food congress, but what is FAO doing or UN organization are doing in this past 20 years is showing that the diverse is an opportunity, not something you should be scared of. Diversity always bears opportunities for us. It enriches us. We don't have to be scared when we see something different from what you're used to. I hope I answered somehow. I know the time is running. I hope you didn't sleep much. Paola?
Thank you very much. It was really interesting. So we had a lot of comments, a lot of questions. Unfortunately, we cannot answer them all. So I will, just for you to know, I will gather all the remaining questions and I will send it to our Professor Zanatta so that in case I can share with you his question. Of course, if Professor Zanatta agrees.
Of course, please. I normally every day I answer many questions from my students from all over the world. So take note of my email. I also write direct messages through the social platform. So please go ahead. Maybe it takes time, but I normally answer anybody. Thank you for your attention. It was not easy, and thank you, Paola, for your assistance. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And we now have two colleagues from our university that will present. Good morning, Maria, and good morning,
Paola. Ciao.
Thank you for joining us. I hope you enjoyed our little lecture today, and thank you again. I immediately leave the floor to you. I know that we also have a video in the end or somewhere in your presentation. So if you need anything, I'm here. Otherwise, the floor is all yours.
Thank you very much, Paola, and thanks to all the people watching this live stream. My name is Maria, and I'm Paola's colleague here at Università Ulm. I work in the International Admissions Office, and I'm here today with my colleague Gabriele to tell you a little more about our university and how to become an Università Ulm student. Gabriele, if you want to say a couple of words about yourself.
Yeah, thank you for your brief and very clear introduction, Maria. So as she said, I'm Gabriele. I work together with her in the International Admissions Office of Ulm University. And I'd like to, first of all, welcome you all here to this presentation we are going to hold in a couple of minutes concerning our bachelor and master programs, as far as also our admission procedure is concerned. So there may be some students among the audience that is following us today. So without further ado, I will leave the floor to Maria. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Gabriele, and thanks again to all the people watching. As of now, what we're going to do, we're going to show you a little video about our university, how the campus looks like. And after that, we will cover, as Gabriele said, the services, the programs, and the admission procedure on how to become a student here at ULM. Also, if you want to ask any questions, you can do so in the chat, because me and Gabriele have both been also ULM students. So feel free to ask as many questions as you'd like. Right now, I'd like to ask Jacopo if you can share the video with Beautiful, great. Thank you very much, Jacopo, for sharing this video. I hope the students and people watching managed to gather an idea of how our campus looks like. And right now, I will share my screen to show you a quick presentation that me and Gabriele will make about our university. So just 1 second, please. Great. Beautiful. Just a couple of words regarding the history of Università Iuni. It was founded in 1960, so just a little over 50 years ago. And the first faculty that was founded was the one in translation. Because what communication was back then was to make sure that two different cultures could communicate with one another. And here you can find the real core of our university. Our university's program mainly focused on communication, languages, and creative industries, of course, together with tourism. We do have 3 faculties. The most numerous one, the most popular one, is the one in communication. Then the one I mentioned that the university was founded on, and then the third one. Our university is a private one, a private institution, not for profit. This means that all the tuition fees students pay are entirely reinvested within our institution. Human numbers. Here, I'll promise be super brief. We have around 7,000 students, and this makes us a medium-sized institution, and that allows us to have a very personal kind of approach towards each and every student that enrolls, especially with international students. We all know within the admission scheme, but also for professors, we know international students one by one, and we guide them from the very first moment they start to interact with us. Another thing that I think it's worth mentioning, as you probably managed to see from the video, is that our university is like an American-style campus. So all the buildings that are part of UNE are around one street. That makes it very easy for students to go from one class to another, and also makes it a very safe environment for all the students of our university. We have 13 degree courses, more than 18 one-year masters. Gabriele will guide you through the whole academic offer that UM University has. But last but not least, we are based in Milan. And I think Gabriele wants to say a couple of words on this.
Yeah, that's right. So thank you for presenting the first slides. And here we are at the starting point. So where is Ulm University located? So we are, as Maria already said, in Milan, so in the northern part of Italy. And as a student in the years before, I can say that Milan has been really the best city to live in and to study in, because it offers a variety of opportunities that can be very, very useful for students, not only for Italian students, but also, and most importantly, for international students, because they can enjoy Italian lifestyle, discover Italian culture, and visit the city, of course, and also maybe deepen their knowledge and their experiences as, for example, events and fashion are concerned. So Milan is located, as I was saying, in the northern part of Italy, in the region called Lombardy, that has ranked second for the regional GDP in Europe. And this is, of course, considered a very important factor for the region. And that's why also the city of Milan, that is the main city of Lombardy, can be a great opportunity for students. Okay, so here we have a picture of our American-style campus that Maria was telling you about before. And we just see 3 different boxes related to 3 different areas in which the university is active. So we can mention the international dimension, meaning that different study abroad programs have been developed in the past years, so that students have the opportunity to spend a period of time abroad and maybe learn a new language, make, of course, a great amount of experiences, and to deepen their language if they are studying in a country they are already learning the language. And in this case, students at the end of their mobility period will have their activities recognized once back in Ulm. And this can be a great growth, not only as far as education is concerned, but also as far as a personal development is concerned. So when switching to the career part, we can say that we have more than 1,400 partner companies. And in this case, of course, our office is the students' career service office is dedicated to helping students in finding a job, finding internship, and it is also the reference point to which students can address themselves while learning, while studying at Ulm. And in this case, also different events are organized so that on the one hand, we can have the theoretical approach to different subjects and to different areas, while on the other hand, we will have something more concrete that can be provided by the career service office so that students will have the opportunity to spend a period of time in a company, for example, and see how does the world of work works. And also the guidance services are something that are very important for us. So we can talk about the counseling services or peer tutoring services that we have been implementing and boosting specifically last year due to the unfortunate condition we found ourselves in, so the COVID crisis. But this has been a great means to help students that were abroad, that were back home, that were isolated, to help them in order to maintain a connection between the university and the student itself. Also, last but not least, services for students with disabilities are also offered by our specific office that is always aiming at providing students with the best treatment possible. So this is the Italian education system. Just very briefly, we study normally and usually 13 years, so from the first year of school to the last year of high school, and then there are a variety of opportunities. So first of all, if you'd like to attend an Italian university, 12 years of studying overall are required, but this will be explained later on by my colleague Maria concerning the admission requirements. And once entering the university, you can attend a bachelor program that lasts 3 years. And then after that, you can choose different options. The first one is going straight away to the job market. The second one is to deepen your knowledge with a master's degree that lasts 2 years, and eventually also attending a PhD that lasts another 3 years after that, and finally reaching the job market. Or after the bachelor's degree, it is possible to attend a 1-year master program, so a fast-track program that is a bit different from the 2-year master's degree I was mentioning before, but we will deepen into this later on. So Ulm has provided many different tools and instruments in order to face the pandemic that we have been living since last year. And the first important thing is that students haven't missed a single lecture because everything has been switched from in-presence to online in very short period of time. And also campus security has been increased, but also sanitation, for example, has been boosted so that students can join the university and can visit campus very safely. Also, as I was already mentioning, psychological counseling and mindfulness sessions have been organized so that students have been provided with an approach to how to deal with stress, how to deal with anxiety, and how to deal most of all with the pandemic. And maybe Maria can share a couple of words about this, that she followed all the students that attended the mindfulness and the psychological counseling pathway.
Absolutely, yes. Thank you, Gabriele. When we found ourselves in this completely different world last March, we decided, together with the counseling office, to start providing our students with all the right tools to make sure they could keep their attention and their focus very strong, despite the fact that all the lectures were of course switched to online. The most effective way to do so was to, of course, start a mindfulness course that has been had a great success. We've activated this course both in English as well as in Italian for all students of our university, together with many webinars and lectures, of course, to make sure our students had all the right tools, starting from meetings and webinars on how to deal with emotions during the crisis. This series of events we did were also aimed for students young students that were abroad at the time for their Erasmus program or their exchange program, as well as for incoming students, so international students that were in Milan at the time of complete lockdown. Thank you, Gabriele, for asking my opinion on this.
Yeah, thank you for sharing your experience. And switching to the core of this presentation, we will delve into the bachelor's degrees and also 2-year master's degrees, as well as 1-year master's degree. So, as Maria was mentioning at the very beginning of this presentation, the university is focused on languages, media, and communication. The theme of communication can be found in every single course that we are going to talk about very soon. And the communication aspect is very important in the current world, and most of all in the current world of work, whereas communication plays a very important role in this. So we have 2 different boxes, as you can see from the slide. The first one is referred to Italian taught programs, and the second one to English taught programs. I will just spend a couple of words very shortly on the first box, so the Italian taught programs, that are of course related to the communication area, as I was saying. The first one, interpreting and communication, is maybe the original one with which the university has been built more than 50 years ago. And this is aimed at providing students with full knowledge of 2 different languages so that they can work as translators, interpreters, or linguistic mediators in different contexts. The second one refers to the area of communication, and in this case we have communication, media and advertising, and corporate communication and public relations. The first one is on the one hand related to the theoretical approach of communication. This means on learning how does communication work in different markets, in different areas, on different platforms, specifically considering new media and advertising. And on the other hand, we have a practical approach so that students can also create and develop some projects. And this one is the course that has been attended by Maria, and I don't know if she'd like to share her opinion on this.
Absolutely, sure. Thank you, Gabriele. Communication and media and advertising, it's, as Gabriele said, an Italian taught program. And among the professors of this program, you'll have, among many others, renowned names, also Professor Gianni Canova, which is the rector of our university. And I have to thank what I thought when I was 18 and I enrolled in this program, because it really opened up my mind, giving me the chance to understand how the importance of different language according to the different means used within the media and communication world. In this course, you study everything related to media, from cinema to theater to radio, and it will really open up your mind, giving you all the right tools to then specialize in something more specific. Among the courses that we offer, I'd say this is the one that opens up to you the most means and ways for your future career plans, while all the others bachelor's degrees that Gabriele is describing and will describe you are more already oriented towards one profession.
Yeah, that's right. Thank you for your opinion and your point of view. The other course related to the area of communication is corporate communication and public relations. And since a couple of academic years, we have been offering this course both in Italian and in English. This is why we are opening up to international students, and we would like to welcome them all, so that also international students can attend an English course in Italy and in the meantime develop their knowledge of the country, the culture, and also the language. Why not? So this course is related to a managerial approach to communication. This means that elements of economics, of marketing, of communication have to be taken into account in order to provide students with full tools and instruments to work in a specific field, that of communication, but not related to the creation of contents, as can be in the previous case of communication, media, and advertising, but in the sense of understanding how does corporate communication work and how does corporates work in this sense. Also, switching to the last area, the last faculty we can mention tourism management and culture, that is aimed at the promotion and the understanding of the territory that characterize our country, but also Europe and the world, globally said. And in this case, students will have an approach to communication that is specifically focused on tourism. So how do I develop some strategies? How can a trip be organized? How can different structures work in this field of tourism, and how can maybe develop strategies to rise again from the crisis we have been facing last year, for example. This was a real concrete example of classes, lectures, or seminars that can be developed. Also, arts, media, and cultural events is related, as the title says, to arts. So in this sense, the understanding, the learning of previous arts history is something crucial for students that will have the opportunity to learn how to deal with cultural events, to organize them, and to develop the best communication strategy possible. And last but not least, fashion and creative industries is the last bachelor that we had last year, and is focused on fashion and the communication inside this sector that plays a very important role for the city of Milan. So switching to the master's degree, we can say that these are the natural second part, this natural second season, so to say, of the previous courses I was mentioning, so bachelor programs. In this case, master's degree lasts 2 years and are very focused on a specific sector and on a specific profession. On the first box, we see Italian taught programs. We can find specialized translation and conference interpreting, the course that I attended, specifically that in conference interpreting, in which students are provided with all knowledge possible related to translation techniques, interpreting techniques, and they have the opportunity to develop this knowledge, this language knowledge, into a profession. Also, television, cinema, and new media is the second part, so the natural following of the communication, media, and advertising. And in this case, the master's degree is focused on different fields, but more specifically, you have to choose on which field you'd like to specialize on. So if you'd like to learn and work in the television environment, or to area related to cinema, or that of new media, so social media and the communication online. Also, marketing, consumption, and communication is another course related to the area, the faculty of communication. And in this case, the approach is much more related to economics, because, of course, you can say marketing plays an important role, but marketing's combined together with economics plays a more important role. And this is aimed at learning how does economics work in the communication area of corporates or industries, or how to develop different marketing strategies, for example. Plus, Italian taught program is art valorization and market. So the second part of the previous bachelor I was describing before. And also in this case, students will have the opportunity to work as event organizer, as art expert, and as professional in the sense of communication related to art. But most importantly, here we have the English taught program still. We are talking about strategic communication and hospitality and tourism management. So strategic communication refers to the faculty of communication, in which on the one hand we have a theoretical approach to economics, marketing, communication itself, and all a variety of other subjects that are very required and useful for students. And on the other hand, we have a more practical approach, meaning that students are required to carry out projects, create ideas, develop them, and also they have the opportunity to join a traineeship or an internship in a company that is not only related to Italy, but could be also related to Europe, so at an international level. The second course is hospitality and tourism management. And in this case, the faculty is that of tourism and communication in this sense. And thanks to this course that is fully English taught, students have the opportunity to learn how does the world of hospitality work, to operate as professional in the field of tourism, and also their second year can be characterized by a very interesting choice. So students can decide to stay in Ulm and carry out the second year at Ulm, but also they can decide to attend the second year at the partner university in the US, that is UCF in California, in which students will deepen different aspects of the communication related to tourism. So the point of view is different according to the program you choose to attend. And sorry, I probably said that the second year can be spent at the University of Central California, but in reality it is Florida. Sorry, my mistake, my bad. And switching to 1 year's master's degree, one question that we always get is, what is the difference between 2 years master's degree and 1 year master's degree? Would you like to answer, Maria?
Yes, of course. Thank you, Gabriele. Thank you very much for your explanation on the academic offer concerning bachelor's and 2-year master's degrees. And as you probably already saw in the slide that Gabriele showed you before regarding the Italian educational system, you saw that we're put at the same level, 2 years master's and 1 year master's. Of course, apart from the duration, which is a difference between these two types of master, is the goal this master have. While 2 year masters make sure you have all the right tools together with a strong theoretical base to become a professionist in a sector, as Gabriele correctly mentioned before, like marketing, for example, 1 year masters are tailored and designed to make sure you've got the right tools to become a professional for one job. So they are already tailoring one profession specifically. In this case, as you can see from this slide, we have a huge variety of 1 year masters, also executive masters. So just to mention master degrees that do not award university credits, but are tailored for professionals that want to increase their theoretical base. On the left side of the screen, you see the Italian taught ones, and on the top right, the English taught ones. I was lucky enough to attend the first master that you see on the top right, which is Communication for International Relations. And one thing that I think it's worth mentioning is the structures of this 1 year masters. For example, the Master in Communication for International Relations had 6 months of lectures held in Milan, and it was like a full-time job from Monday to Friday, every day, of course, from 9 a.m. in the morning till 6 o'clock. It was like going to work. After that, and it was filled with group projects, presentations. I had the opportunity of having great classmates from all over the world. Once lectures were over, we traveled for the study tour to the United States. We visited the World Bank, the United Nations, so New York and Washington. And we also visited Kearney University together in partnership with, you can also acquire through this master program an MBA at our partner university. Once we got back from the study tour, the university helped us find an internship opportunity. And I don't want to get too personal, but I remember I wanted to go as far as possible. So I did my internship in Sydney, as far as possible from my parents, of course, because I was very young. And they sent me to Australia, to the Italian Chamber of Commerce in Sydney. And it has been absolutely the best. As you can see, also the other one-year master's here, International Communication, is a joint master that we do with Vilnius University and Litzbecket University in the UK, International Tourism and Hospitality, which is a fast-track program compared to the 2-year masters in hospitality and tourism management. In this case as well, 6 months of lectures in Milan, a study tour in Dubai and Abu Dhabi, and then the university will help you find an internship opportunity in Italy or abroad. Then we have the master in game design, which will start off with your pitch to the professor on your idea of a video game, and throughout the master you'll learn how to create one and how to market it as well. As I briefly mentioned, we also offer executive masters, like the one in international marketing and sales communication, which we created in partnership with Salesforce, that I'm sure you all know it's the biggest CRM company in the world, together with the online executive master in museology, new media, and museum communication. This is the master that we offer online, partially. Some of these masters, of course, have been held online due to the pandemic, and we are redesigning part of the academic offers, so some of them might be offered online as well in the future. Who knows? In order to become a ULM student, here you can see the admission procedure for bachelor's degrees. So straight after high school, how to become an ULM student. As Gabriele mentioned before, are required at least 12 years of schooling, a proficiency in the language the course is taught in, so either Italian or English, depending on the course you choose. Certificates are not compulsory, so if you don't have an Italian or an English certificate, it won't be a problem. We will organize for you an Italian or English. Important though that you already feel like you're proficient in the language, at least at a B2 level. The admission procedure couldn't be easier than the one we created. Students just have to visit the website apply.iulm.it, which is our application portal, submit their documents, we will evaluate them, and we'll get back to you straight away with a feedback. I think Gabriele can testify this. I believe we're quite efficient in this sense. How many days do you think, Gabriele, we take to evaluate the documents, more or less?
Well, that's a good question. Also considering the fact that different documents are always provided. So maybe if you come from the US, you have a certain kind of documents, whereas if you come from New Zealand or China, documents are completely different. So I would say maximum in a week, we will get back to you with all the details you will need to follow in order to complete the registration to the website and to take the following admission test.
Absolutely, yes, thank you. Thank you very much for this. For what concerns, on the other end, the admission procedure for 2-year masters, in this case as well, the application procedure is super easy. What we need to do is to look through your documents, so we will need your transcript of records, your certificate of proficiency in English or Italian. I think Gabriele already mentioned it before, the only program that we offer, we require a C1 level of proficiency in, is the master's degree in specialized translation and conference interpreting. In that case, you'll have to be proficient in Italian at a C1 level. And of course, it's very important motivation and a good knowledge of the topics related to the chosen program. In this case as well, the entire application procedure can be done online through our application platform, which is apply.iulm.it. One thing that I forgot to mention before regarding the admission procedure on 3 years bachelor's degrees, we do offer a bachelor's degree in English, which is corporate communication and public relation. In that case, it's not compulsory for you to know Italian before you apply, but it will be required for you to have a B2 level of Italian proficiency once you end the course. So part of the course are also Italian language courses. Here it's what most of the questions generally are. So tuition fees and financial aid opportunities. On one hand, you can see that undergraduate programs, so bachelor's degrees, have a flat rate of 8,400 euros per academic year, divided into 3 installments, and 2 years postgraduate program, 9,800 euros per academic year, as again divided into 3 installments. For all international students, we've created a set of financial aid opportunities. Some of them are purely based on merit. For example, the 50% tuition reduction based exclusively on your merit. So we were looking for your final high school score that has to be higher than 70% and your final bachelor score. We will convert it in the Italian grading system and again has to be higher than 70%. We also offer a discounted rate on accommodation for 280 euros per month, which, trust me, it's a very good price if you take into account that Milan could be quite an expensive city. 280 euros per month in a double room within our residence halls that are on campus. One is actually one of the buildings at Ulm, and the other one is a newly renovated farm 2 minutes away walking distance from the main building. On top of this, students can also apply for DSU Regional Scholarship that will allow them to get a grant up to 4,500 euros. In this case, it's a call for application and it will be based on a ranking, and students have to provide documents regarding their income and the income of their households, properties, assets, together with a merit criteria. All these benefits that I just mentioned can be combined one another. So at the end, it's a pretty good deal. Just a few last facts about our university. It's 10 minutes away from Duomo. We have a dedicated train stop of the metro, which is called Romolo Ulm on the Green Line of the metro. And we, of course, as mentioned before, we are lucky enough to work in a beautiful American-style campus. If you've got any questions or things you want to ask us in the future, here are our contact details. The email address, me or Gabriele will get back to you as soon as possible at admission@iulm.it. You can also visit our website, iulm.com, or you can contact us also via WhatsApp at +39 348 140 9742. I hope we managed to give you an overview of our programs, and we would love to welcome you all physically in our campus, and we hope to see you next year in Milan. I'll stop sharing the screen. Gabriele, would you like to add any other words regarding our university, perhaps from the interpreting and translation perspective?
Well, everything seems pretty clear to me. So as far as the admission procedure, we try to do our best in order to simplify it as much as possible. So the steps are just submitting documents, we evaluate them, confirm your eligibility, and then you'll be provided with full instructions to follow. So this is quite easy. Also concerning tuition fees and financial aid opportunities, the scheme you presented before is pretty clear, so that students could have a bright insight on what tuition fees are concerned. And I do not see here on the chat questions, so I can just remind our audience to write us if they may be interested in discovering more about our university, our courses, and our services. The email address is admission@iulm.it. And well, last but not least, thank you all for joining us and for the time you spent with us and for your attention.
Thank you. Thank you. Hi, Paola, and thank you, Gabriele, as well.
Thank you both, to you both. It has been a pleasure to hear these details from you, and thank you again for being with us. I just want to quickly remind to our audience that this afternoon we have another section, and we will speak about food security and food safety with our FAO experts. So we wait for you at 2:30. You have the link, so see you then, and thank you for being with us for all this time.
Ciao.
Ciao.